Well, here we are again. Back in Cherry Valley, back in the rain, early in the morning, out for my walk. And I figured today would be a good day to talk about why vote for my running mate, PK. And since in Pennsylvania you have no choice, if you're voting for PK, you're voting for me. Why vote for us? Well, there's a whole bunch of reasons. First of all, let's look at the obvious. We're talking about real issues. The Democrats and the Republicans have been running this campaign where they spend a lot of time talking about baloney, stuff that really doesn't matter a whole lot or is completely blown out of proportion. I mean, how many times has John Fetterman talked about Oz as a carpetbagger, or how many times has Oz talked about Fetterman being against frackers, when it's obvious that those aren't real issues, and B, we don't need to be hearing about them. There's more important issues going on in the world than that, or Sheets and Wawa, or Steelers, or Phillies, or the Eagles, or the Pirates. No, we need to be talking about other stuff. We will talk about that. We have been talking about that. The other thing is, I mean, again, let's talk about why specifically PK and me, and that's that, we got Shapiro and Mastriano. Well, Mastriano's not talking to anybody except for his choir, and Shapiro is spending a lot of time talking about if Mastriano's elected, then we're going to be heading to fascism. Well, that may be true, but if that's true, then why the heck did the Shapiro campaign contribute money to elevate Mastriano in the primary? Okay, I think that's very telling. The other thing is corruption, period. PK and I, and Richard, who's running for Senate, and Zara and Jay, who are running for the House in the Pittsburgh region, will not be bought. We're not taking any money from any corporate entity whatsoever. We refuse to. And even though the gubernatorial campaign, that means me and the lieutenant governor campaign and the gubernatorial campaign with PK, we've decided not to take any contributions at all. We want all of our money going to the Green Party so it can rebuild. Even though we haven't taken it in this campaign, we promise you that moving forward, the Green Party is not going to take anything in any campaign, because that's part of who we are. That's our identity. However, look at the coffers of both Mastriano and Shapiro, and look at the coffers of Oz and Fetterman, and you will see that they have been bought by somebody. Let me give you an example, and this isn't either one of those, but this is one near and dear to me because it's it's my old union. I'm a lifelong member of NEA, at least my career of NEA, and PSEA, my local state organization, contributed over $20,000 to a state rep candidate who is running unopposed. Now, that just irks the heck out of me, because a few years ago I ran in a campaign in the 64th district, which is parts of Butler and all of Venango County. And that year there were two teachers, one active and one retired, running against the knuckle-dragging conservative guy, and PSEA couldn't be bothered to endorse either one. Could have made a difference, but didn't. So yeah, we will not be bought. But the other campaigns absolutely will be bought. I'm not leaving out the Libertarians and the Keystone. I haven't paid attention to where their money's coming from, but I know that the Green Party will not be bought. The next thing that I'd want to talk about is abortion. You know, we keep hearing from the Shapiro campaign that he's going to protect abortion, and that if Mastriano is elected, that he will pass the most draconian legislation. That may very well be true. And that's something you need to consider. I agree with that. But here's the other thing. The Democrats could have been addressing this issue forever. Back in 2008, candidate Obama said that his priority on day number 1 was to codify Roe. Well, guess what? Several months into, after not making it his number 1 priority, several months into his presidency, when asked about why he didn't do it, he said, or at least somebody in his camp said, it's not a priority. Well, now it is. And all of a sudden, the Democrats are going to protect that right that they could have protected a long, long time ago. And finally, let's talk about why you should vote for us in another vein. I keep hearing about the Greens as spoilers, the Greens as whatever. But, that's really a crazy notion. In Pennsylvania, the Democrats outnumber Republicans by a significant amount. And yet, they routinely squeak by in a lot of elections. And they routinely talk about being for democracy. And yet, in communities like mine, which is a rural community in northern Butler County, we've been bleeding jobs and young people for the past 40-some years. I've lived in Cherry Valley for 40 years, and we were already bleeding jobs before I moved here. But the Democrats will patronize us. No, I'm sorry. The Democrats completely ignore us. They don't patronize us. They don't even bother coming up here to talk about anything. And the Republicans patronize us. They say all the right things, but then they don't do anything to actually help us. So, first of all, we're not spoilers because there's nothing to spoil. The Democrats don't care. They don't care about voters in a lot of places, and they've rigged the system. The Greens are a minor party, which means that we can actually control our ballot line. If we don't get a certain percentage of the vote, then we lose that minor party status. And what happens? Then anybody can run as a Green. And then you won't have any choice at all. Well, you have the Libertarians and the Keystone folks in Pennsylvania and maybe some others, who knows. They'll rise up out of the ashes. But you won't have choices. And the Libertarians and the Keystone Party are in the same boat that we're in. They could lose their ballot minor party status too. But anyway, the Democrats and Republicans have set this up for a reason, because they don't want the competition. And how do I know they don't want the competition? Well, let's look at, for instance, the 203 seats that are up for the House of Representatives and the 50 seats that are up in the Pennsylvania Senate. The 203 seats, I stopped counting when I got so disgusted at 80. 80 candidates are running unopposed. And if you factored out the several seats that are also being contested by Libertarians, the Keystone Party, or Greens, it would be even more. And the reason is because the politicians pick their voters. They don't let the voters pick their representatives. And they do that because they like not having any competition. And even beyond that, the lines are drawn in such a way that when it comes down to it, fewer than 25% of the seats are actually competitive in November. Most of them are a foregone conclusion. That's sick. That's not democracy. The other thing is, like I said, going back to the spoiler notion, the Democrats would like to call us spoilers. Well, if you can't mobilize your own voters, then it's not because of some minor party being in the race. It's because you didn't do your job. And when McDonald's loses market share, they don't blame the consumer. They don't blame the competition. They look at their product because they know that their product is defective. Well, that's not what the Democrats and Republicans do. What they do is they narrow the choices. So you can only choose a Democrat or a Republican. Now, the other bad thing about all this is that it's going to continue unless we change it by not voting for Democrats and Republicans. We have to get outside the duopoly. And the reason I'm saying that is that in my lifetime, the Republicans have gone from being champions of things like civil rights and the Environmental Protection Agency and a lot of other things to being a far-right, racist, xenophobic party. And the Democrats' response to that is, instead of being a true voice of dissent, they keep moving the window. So the Overton window keeps shifting closer and closer to the Republicans. That means you don't get to choose anything that is not weird. Okay, anyway, that's my message for the day. Give me a shout out. This will be on YouTube, it'll be on Twitter, and it'll be on Facebook. Give me some feedback. Thanks.